I get a lot of questions regarding, my background, where I've come from, what I did, how did we get to where we are today. And I'm one that is a very, very transparent, open book. It was not easy. I didn't come from privilege. I didn't come from money. I didn't come from education. It really was hard work and street smarts. Myself, I grew up with a mom and dad, as most kids do, and unfortunately that ended at a very young age into a very nasty divorce. And ultimately, what kept me grounded was I was a swimmer. I swam my whole life ever since I was a very young kid, and it allowed me to have an escape from reality. And that's really what gave me, I think, the foundation of grounding me and getting me to understand what hard work would really do and pay off. I never once missed school. I ended up actually graduating Grant High School with honors. I graduated in the 11th grade with my full diploma, not a GED. And immediately after that, I started working in the real world. I met my wife, who I'm with now, and have been with since I was 15 in high school. I moved in with her and her parents. Her dad was passing away with cancer. So I took care of her mom, I took care of her, and her mom worked at the US Bank. And so I got a job. That was my main job, right out of high school. And I got used to working with brokers, customers, commercial clients, and I got a real taste young of what it was that if you had success or were around success, you could become success. And that was my mindset. I wasn't gonna take no for an answer. I was fortunate enough to be working out of Lake Oswego, Oregon, so I got to see what the lending industry was like and the real estate industry, and it really intrigued me. And I knew I was good at sales. I knew I was good at talking to clients. So I dove into it head first, no questions asked. I quit the bank and went to a 100% commission job. And I worked as a loan officer for a company, and my first year in, I killed it. I did well. And I knew right then and there, this was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to do real estate, I wanted to do lending, I wanted to build portfolios, own homes, build homes, anything home related. I knew that's where I was gonna go. People ask me all the time, how do you get past all the issues? How do you get past all the stumbling blocks of owning your own business? It was because when I was 18, almost turning 19 years old, I became self-employed. And I went back to my roots all the way when I was a kid, and it was the same kind of aspect. I was swimming, I was doing for myself, and I was already in the essence being self-employed. I was in a position that I could know that I could only rely on myself, and whatever goals I set or achieved, it would be because of what I did. And I took that to heart all the way through my early 20s. I became very successful. I wouldn't say I was rich, but I became, a millionaire at the age of 23. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I will be the first to admit that. I was lacking the business sense side of me. I did not realize or forecast for the future and the what-if scenarios. And the what-if scenarios became of the market crash of 2007, 8, 9, and 10 that we all were aware of. And at that time, I got caught. I got caught with owning almost 73 homes. I thought that I was invincible. I thought that everything was going to be hunky-dory. I actually ended up going through bankruptcy. I ended up going through some very hard trials and tribulations. And there's no secret to that. I'm not ashamed of it. I've had people realize that, they think they can assume things about me because they've read something or they've heard something. But the truth is I was young. I made some mistakes. I owned up to those mistakes. I paid for those mistakes greatly, and I had to start over. This is 2007 and 2008. The markets crashed. I've got no money. I lost everything. And I find out my wife's mom is stage 4 in cancer. And for us, it was a very hard thing because I did not have a relationship with my mom. And I didn't even get a chance to honestly make respects with my mom because my mom died instantly. It was a heart attack, and I didn't even get to say goodbye. And so I regretted that my whole life, realizing that You know, yeah, I was mad. Yeah, it was something that now I look at it as it was petty. And you know, my mom did the best she could, but ultimately, when you don't get that chance, it sucks. And fast forwarding to my wife, who is my everything, her mom became my mom, and I was best friends with her. In all reality, I had nothing in common with her, but we were best friends. It was like we always were plotting. She always pushed me. She always gave me the encouragement to be successful. And even when I lost everything, you know, I remember it. She literally took off her slipper one day and she hit me upside my head and she goes, "You need to stop pouting. You need to stop feeling bad for yourself." She's like, "Look what you've done this whole entire, 10 years that I've been around you." And she's like, "Just because you've had a bad break, it doesn't mean that you can't start over." And I'm not a depressed person, and she was right. And ultimately I realized, you know what, I can get through this. Went on welfare, had to go on state assistance, didn't have a pot to piss in, didn't know what I was gonna do, left the state again from Oregon, had to move to Arizona to take care of my mother-in-law. And for 5 years, we fought the battle with cancer, and I was literally her caretaker 6 days a week. I was doing lending at that time. I had the freedom to do it from my phone and my computer, so I didn't have to be in an office, but my office was literally chemotherapy. I was there with her every other day. We were at the hospital every day, and she fought the battle until she succumbed to it in 2012. And I lost my best friend. I lost somebody that meant a lot to me. Before she died, I told her, I said I would absolutely make sure, no matter what, that I took care of the family and her daughter and our kids, and that we would, we'd be okay. And then she was at peace with it. She passed, and then ultimately we had to start over again. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to really do what I know best, and that's sales. I got back into the private money lending full-fledged, started doing well again. Nothing like I did back in the day, but I did well enough. And I came back to the coast of Oregon. And I came back because there was a few family left over here, and we had our second kid by then. And I wanted my kids to be around some kind of family. And so we came back to the coast. I was doing the lending, and then I actually, believe it or not, got into doing some sales for the auto industry. And that's kind of how Ryan and I hooked up. He was a manager for a auto company, and he hired me so that I could have a guarantee, and then ultimately I could be working on some loan stuff and just get enough income back in to where we could be stable and back on our feet. Ryan was a family cousin of mine. We say we're cousins, we're actually not. We're family in our essence because we've been together since we were teenagers and kids. We're best friends. Literally, we're next door neighbors. We live right next door to each other. It's kind of funny. And he got me the job, and I didn't even last a month. I told Ryan, I said, "Dude, this sucks. This is horrible. I don't know how you do this. This is not fun." And I went to him and I said, "Look, I've got some investors. Why don't we do something and do something great?" I said, "I know real estate better than anybody. You used to do real estate. You used to lend as well." I said, "Why don't we just start buying some houses, and slowly we'll just fix them up?" And the Portland market was doing well, and the market was rebounding at this point. And he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I said, "Look, man, I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we'll do it. We'll figure it out, and we'll get there." Fast forward to today, Ryan and I ended up doing 20 plus houses. We kind of made our small fortune again and got a new start and a new lease on life. 2015 came, and we had a real sit down and realization of where and what do we need to do with our lives? Where should we go? And we both realized doing the house game was great, but it was a hustle. It was unpredictable. And I knew unless if we were gonna be a big time builder, we weren't gonna be able to do what we really wanted to do. So we looked at each other and we said, what next? What do we do? And Ryan came up with and said, "Look, I know that you love to build and design. I love to fabricate." Ryan is huge about that and production. He's like, why don't we look at the tiny home industry? And so we started really looking at it, and I was like, man, this is a good industry because our audience is worldwide. We can sell nationwide. We're not confined to the area of just the Portland metropolitan market and the conditions of what one market dictates. In the tiny home industry, what we loved about it is that we knew if we built an average tiny home, how long would it take? At that time, we forecasted 2-3 months, not knowing what we know now. And so we were excited. We were like, yeah, if we can build a tiny home in 2 to 3 months and sell it and make a profit, this is better. The other thing is the average home in Oregon was costing us $400,000 or $500,000 to buy, whether it was land or a home. Then you've got to fix it up, you got to tear it down, you got to get permits, you got to rebuild it. Next thing you know, you're spending $800,000, $1 million on one property. I could do 10, 15 tiny homes for that kind of price. So that's what really got us going, and we loved it. So while we were dwindling down the houses and finishing those in 2015, 16, and even up into 17 was the last house we sold, we decided in the beginning of 2016 that we were going to go ahead and start Tiny Innovations. And Ryan and I hit the ground running. We got a lease off of Gleason Street, hired an engineer that we trusted and we knew, had 6 employees. Never had employees before. Everything else was subcontracted, so this was new for us. And we engineered the Catalina, and that was a great experience for us. We spent 3.5 months, 4 months working on the Catalina, doing our build out, creating the business plan, everything. And that's how we really got our start. Fast forward to today, how we ended up where we're at now, and people say, well, Tiny Heirloom, what happened to Tiny Innovations? Tiny Innovations is still here. Tiny Innovations is our production facility. It'll never go away. I mean, we will die true Tiny Innovation owners just because that was our baby. We started it, and we knew that this was going to be the mothership of something so much greater than what we would ever in our wildest dreams think that we would be able to achieve. And we have in a very quick time. We spent 1.5 years on Tiny Innovations doing production, building our name, getting our brand, getting the awareness out there, working on getting all of our proper licensing put together, our certifications, and by year 2, we smashed it. We killed it, and I loved it, every minute of it, because we were able to create a brand, and our brand was based behind building for other builders, because we found the niche in the market. The niche was there were builders who had great plans, great designs, but not the ability to build them as fast as they were selling. So the only way they could is hire us, because we did have all the certifications, work with us, let us build their models for their clients, and then they could get out their products. So Ryan and I decided to formulate this plan, and we sat back in our office and we decided to go to Heirloom. And we both told each other that we would go in there, bring our best game, and earn their business. And we drove to Tualatin, went into the back way on accident, had to walk around looking like idiots, finally got to the front door, and before we entered, we looked at each other and we said, we will own Tiny Heirloom one day. That was what we said. And truth behold, here we are. Although the original owners are no longer with the company, I do give them the respect of what they did and where they started and what they have brought to life. But the whole purpose of why we kept the brand Tiny Heirloom was because we knew that in marketing, you can't have an ego. And although Ryan and I are very proud of what we did for Tiny Innovations, Tiny Innovations will always be our baby and always be the main master company, and it is. That's how it's structured. Heirloom Inc. was the Nike, it was the Adidas, it was the name brand of the tiny home industry. And so we decided to keep the name Tiny Heirloom and what it resembled so that we would have a nationwide business database of clientele and the clout of that name to grow and impress upon. And so we merged the companies, brought in employees both from Heirloom and from Innovations, and this is what we've created. This has only been 3 months, 4 months in the making, but we are absolutely destined to bring better quality, better finishes, better customer service experiences, and make sure that our clients truly get what they deserve. And we knew that the one thing Heirloom was always missing, although they built the most wonderful homes, the most beautiful designs, it was always a custom unit, and it always came with a very, 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 very high price tag. And for a percentage of clientele, that works. And that will always be there. That will be the forefront and will always be what Heirloom is. But we knew Heirloom needed what we called the Signature Series. Ultimately, it came down to giving the clients affordable luxury. That's what Ryan and I like to call it. It's affording them the ability to have the luxury within a price point that they can truly afford. And that's why we've created so many different Signature Series lines, is so that we can have that for our clientele. And that's why Heirloom Inc. is going to become the biggest, the best, and the most recognized name in the tiny home industry.